He doesn't have many groupies, but he may be more important to the development of rock and roll than Mick Jagger or Bruce Springsteen. Bill Graham has produced more than 7,000 rock concerts over the past 20 years. He's considered the best. A bitter and angry Bill Graham at age 35 became a leader in the young world of rock and roll at a time when you weren't supposed to trust anyone over 30. His small Fillmore clubs in San Francisco and New York featured the biggest names in rock music. The late Janis Joplin was one of them.
Some came along, honey grabbed a hold of her, and it felt like a ball and chain. Well, all right, here it comes the last time, yeah!
Graham understands musicians, and that's really important to musicians. Most promoters don't care anything except 2 45-minute sets, $6,500. They refuse to relate in any other terms.
Even though the Fillmore was never franchised, Graham is a millionaire many times over. He sits in the corner office of what has become a music empire that last year grossed over $100 million.
You did the Huey Lewis video album. That is fantastic.
He handles everything: security, catering, promotion. He's even building his own 15,000-seat arena in San Francisco. The Graham formula is simple: total control. And he applied it, or at least thought he did, staging Live Aid, 12 hours of continuous music that raised more than $80 million for famine relief.
We are the world. We are the children.
Welcome back to another episode of The Alarmists. And this week we have a doozy. We are celebrating, or really commemorating, the 50th anniversary of the closing of the Fillmore East, one of the most iconic, if not the greatest, music hall that ever existed in New York and also in San Francisco. And it was run by an incredible, innovative trailblazer named Bill Graham. And it was because of Bill's spirit and soul that he brought some of the most imaginative ideas to music that's ever existed. He had everybody on, that was in music at that venue. Led Zeppelin, he had Jimi Hendrix, he had Janis Joplin. I can go on and on and on. But you know what was amazing about Bill Graham? Bill Graham knew that Black Lives Matter even before Black Lives Matter. He had no color censor in the way he chose. He chose what was best for music. He would put the most unusual acts together, like Woody Herman and Led Zeppelin. He was already, I'm going to read a list of names. He had Nina Simone, Jimi Hendrix, Dizzy Gillespie, Ray Charles, Isaac Hayes, Richie Havens, Sly and the Family Stone, Ravi Shankar, the Stapleton Singers. I go on and on and on. This man was ahead of his time. He saw things as they are. He said it like it is. And I'm going to bring on today some of the most iconic people who have been there. I'm not telling you who they are yet. You're going to find out in a moment. Noah, bring them on. Hello, my historic fellow friends here. All right, we have some really amazing people on the show today. Of course, Joshua Wright, who was the light man behind all the Fillmore East shows. This was the man who made light an art form. He's the color yellow. It's okay. We have Corky Lane. Corky, say hello to everybody.
Hello from Finland.
From Finland. Oh my God. We have Amelie Rothschild, who was a fly on the wall and photographed almost every act except Led Zeppelin. She photographed every single act that ever entered those amazing halls. Hi, Amelie. How are you in Italy? All the way from Italy. We have Alan. Now, Alan, tell the viewers a little bit. You and Jerry are kind of like legends in this arena, but we have a whole generation of people that don't know all the intricacies about the history of the Fillmore East. So give us a quick snapshot.
I went to the first show, which was in 1968, and I saw Big Brother and the Holding Company with Janis Joplin. And then 4 months later, I got a job as an usher, and my boss was that guy in the next square, Jerry Pompili. Jerry was my boss. And, Jerry paid me almost $5 a night.
$5, man. Oh my God.
Yeah, and I'd pay him $5 to see 4 shows a weekend of the Led Zeppelin. I mean, the shows were legendary. You name one show I can throw out there is Miles Davis, the Steve Miller Band, and Neil Young with Crazy Horse. So
just listen to yourself. All the names that you just threw out there, these are the most iconic names in music. Even today, they're gods, you know. And
I was an usher, and the night that Santana came and played, and they had the #1 album in the country, place went crazy. Then I was on the stage crew, and I saw the Allman Brothers and the Grateful Dead play together, and Mad Dogs and Englishmen, and then in the Psychedelic Light Show, Joe's Lights, which come out of Josh's show, the Joshua
Mad
Light
Dogs
Show.
and Englishmen was Joe Cocker, right?
You bet. Yeah.
Cocker, and I didn't even know her. Now I want to know, Jerry. Jerry, you were the kind of person, from what I read about you, Bill just hired you and you never went away. Is that true?
No, I just kept. I also started as an usher before Alan, of course, and I got promoted when they fired the house manager, and I just started doing his job, so they gave it to me. And like Emily and Joshua will have stories about the bands, and I didn't do the bands, I did the audience, so I can tell you shit from the other side of the stage. You know, that happened, and it was
now, Corky, when you see these faces, and now we're starting to turn the pages back 50 years. What do you get any flashbacks? Do I mean, what are your what are your memories of the Fillmore? Because we don't have anything like that today.
First of all, I can't believe, I don't know how you guys feel, but it's been 50 freaking years.
Yeah, we're looking pretty good,
You guys are looking good. You're awake. This is good. You guys are the guys that made it happen. We were just the icing. You were the cake. And it was very tasty, the way you guys handled all that. I didn't know anybody because I was up there, in the best seat in the house on the riser on the stage. But
Corky played with one of the most iconic groups, Mountain, with Leslie West. Tell us a little bit, because you have a whole bunch of listeners out there that don't know Mountain, and I want them to know.
I don't know really where to start, except October '69 was like our first big gig for Mountain, and Felix, he was the guide for the band, and we had rehearsed. I have to say quickly, we had rehearsed more than I've ever rehearsed in my whole life, in 10 days to play that show. We played the Boston Tea Party, and the next show was the New York, hometown. And I got to tell you, because of all you guys, I came down from Montreal, and to me, it was like playing in my living room, because Leslie and Felix, they're all New Yorkers, all a bunch of New Yorkers. You guys would probably know it because you're probably New Yorkers.
I am.
I am the Canadian from Montreal. I come down, I wear the Montreal Canadiens hockey shirt for the first time. For me, it was like getting laid. Are we allowed to talk about sex?
Don't exaggerate.
Okay.
I have to say that
at our age, getting laid, what the hell is that?
Well, yeah, I'm going to tell you. I'll tell you what it was. I know one thing. It was better than sex. That show, the first show, October. It was you always remember the first time. Anything you do. That was it. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know you guys personally, but I know going there, you made it feel like home. And, every museum, talk about all the Mad Dogs and English, Steve Miller, all these guys come from out of town and they're fudging their silks because it's New York City, right?
And Amelie photographed it like a historian, although I bet you didn't know at that time that you were going to be that historian. You tell me, what did you see, Amelie?
Well, no, do you remember New Year's Eve, December 31st?
Of course, yeah.
1970, with the sparklers and everything.
Yeah, it was a
Look at that.
right there.
You came prepared.
Emily, can I talk to you for a second off the record? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Let me just talk. Okay. First of all, Tuja, my manager, just found the photograph of us playing the Fillmore, and I, at the time, had taken off my shirt. And as a drummer coming from Canada, a very proper country, I never played without my shirt on stage. And you got the one picture. Wait a second. And then it shows up on the cover of the first Wes Bruce and Lang record. And,
Wow.
and I remember calling them saying, Jack, Leslie, what's the story? I never took my shirt off. I thought it was a body double. I didn't know it was me. You got that. You really put me in I have to now negotiate for you for that photograph. 50 years.
Emily, so really, we want to know, you've seen so much. Share some stories with us, because you saw it all, man.
Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to Emily.
Emily, go ahead.
I don't half the time, not half the time. When I was taking pictures, I was in a zone. So the camera were my eyes, and it was just part of me. So I wasn't conscious in the same way. It all came back when I processed the film, contact sheets, made prints, and then it was there. But the music was simply vibrating through me, and I was taking pictures, and it varied. I mean, Alan said that I only took pictures of the groups I liked, which, as it turned out, I liked most of them, so that was okay. But
what was your beef with Led Zeppelin? Why didn't you like Led Zeppelin?
I didn't like Led Zeppelin, so I have no photographs of Led Zeppelin, which was stupid. But that's, can't do
well,
everything.
We have to live by the sword,
great.
die by the sword. Jerry has an amazing.
But I took pictures of Mountain, although I wore earplugs. You were the loudest group that I could tolerate.
And we were proud.
Touche, baby, touche. Jerry, you have. Where you going, Jerry? Come back. Uh-oh.
Jerry disappeared.
Because Mountain was loud.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, and therefore came the cowbell and timbales, because they're the loudest.
Cowbell. Wait a minute. Let's give it up for Corky's cowbell on Mississippi Queen. The cowbell on Mississippi Queen is awesome.
Thank you very much. I had the timbales from my original band, which was a dance band. We played Latin music. I couldn't afford the tom-toms. The timbales are like nuclear warheads. It was the only drum that would cut through the stacks. You remember those stacks that went on for miles, and that's why we became a heavy metal band, because I was playing metal. Anyways, I've said my part.
Wait,
Jerry,
I gotta tell
Jerry has a Chuck
go ahead.
Berry story. We'll get to you. Chuck Berry story and a chicken sandwich.
Jesse, are you aware that you're off mic? We can't hear you like we can hear everybody else.
You can't hear me now.
And now we can, but
Okay.
you set back
Maybe I
that
was
one
too far away
foot
from the
and
mic.
you're hard to hear.
Okay. So, Jerry, you had this amazing Chuck Berry chicken sandwich story. I want to hear this.
Yeah, I just pulled that this morning. I'm really tired of telling that story about hooking in on Chuck Berry with
tell me another
Fort
one.
Noonan
I don't like chicken anyway.
How do you top that story, huh?
Anyway,
All right, so go ahead, Alan. Let me hear.
When I first
Go ahead.
Okay, so Corky, what you didn't know, behind the scenes, all of us in the lighting and sound had headphones on.
Right.
And we were in constant contact throughout the show, and that's how we called all the color and lighting changes. And we always knew that Mountain was going to open with Never in My Life. Okay? That was your big opening in those days. And that song hits like a ton of bricks. So we would all be ready. And as you guys raised your instruments, the lighting guy, and whoever it was at that time, George or Arthur Shafransky or Candace, would count it down. So when you went into that opening blast of sound, we would all hit at once with this enormous blast of light. And then we'd count down and someone go, here's the riff, da 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 da. And we all coordinated and made all those changes. We had done so many shows with you. I mean, Nantucket Sleigh Ride, we were always set with this band.
Alan, am I going to get like lawyers' letters for your ears or something?
Oh, okay. I think Blue Cheer was louder. That's just a personal opinion.
Oh, I don't know.
I can't believe you guys should think about this. I can't believe that we're all sitting here talking about the volume.
Well, you can hear Blue Cheer out on 2nd Avenue.
Wait a second. I think we were in tune.
You
The
guys
spirit
are.
and soul of this venue at Fillmore East was Bill Graham. And I
Yes.
would love each of you to comment about the man and what you knew of him when you were, in your experiences there. Because to me, Bill Graham really, he did things that nobody does anymore. I mean, he thought in, in a freedom and an expression. And I think he knew exactly when to close the Fillmore because he realized that he was no longer going to have control and that the management and the record companies were going to start packaging everything. But I want to get your insight on your first impressions and what you thought of the man. Let's start with Corky.
My first impression, I think I was on the other podcast. Felix Pappalardi was very tight with Bill. I was the new kid in town. I was like 18, 19 years old. So I just listened and played quietly. But I know Bill loved Mountain and he treated us golden. We like golden, but he treated everybody he liked as, like they were princes and queens. You know what I mean? He was really a gentleman and he served up an amazing assortment, like you said, Jesse, about all the different various bands and styles. All I can say about he just was very consistent. You didn't have to worry a thing about any production because of you guys. We didn't have to worry about any of that. I didn't know.
Bill spoke his mind. I've seen some.
I happen to think, I'm not sure. I think you guys are on the same pot that Bob Dylan was smoking. I don't know. It was like the point is that it was the most fun in the world, and Bill was the producer of the most amazing stuff. And the thing is, I lived around the corner I lived on McDougal Street when I moved down to play.
Oh, I lived on McDougal Street too at once. I was at Cafe Dante.
Yeah, we crossed the street, 106 McDougal. But what I'm saying, I used to walk to the Fillmore all the time when I wasn't playing. And the band, it's funny because the Allman Brothers their equipment would be outside on the street, right? Because they would switch and all, and we'd hang out. It wasn't just in the Fillmore; it was around the whole neighborhood. Anywhere you went. So I can't say enough about Bill. As a matter of fact, I talk a lot, anyways, but I cannot say enough about Bill Graham. He was a joy. He was the real deal. He was genuine. There wasn't a fake bone in the body of his.
Yeah, even with me as a journalist, I met him at the end of his life in New York. And, if I had something to say, man, he would stop in his tracks and he would engage you. He would look you in the eye and he would have a serious discussion as though you were the most important person in the room. And that's what I liked about him. You don't find that anymore. You don't find, and he really, if you see the clips of him in the documentary and in interviews, this man told you how he felt. He had vision and you could also challenge him, and you guys, you guys were there when all that happened. People like that don't exist now. Amelie, what was your take on Bill? You must have dealt with him constantly.
Well, I didn't really have much of a personal relationship with him per se, but he became aware of me because he saw my photographs. Some of them were up in the office and he liked my pictures, and some of them ended up being used in the weekly program, not every single week. And so he didn't treat me in a macho way. He treated me with respect. which was good. I mean, I wish I had known then that he was a Holocaust survivor.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish there are all kinds of things I wish I had known, with the idea that maybe I would have been able to talk to him about it, but who knows? That's highly unlikely. But what was really important that I think a lot of people are not that aware of is that how did he even get into the music business? He organized a benefit for the San Francisco Mime Troupe. So the very first time he organized a concert, it was to benefit someone. It was to raise money. And he realized that the musicians needed someone with that ability. In fact, the Fillmore West actually, when the original Fillmore Auditorium, when he had to leave the original venue, the Fillmore, he took over the Carousel Ballroom, which was then renamed the Fillmore West, and that was being run by the Grateful Dead, but they couldn't manage it, and he was the man with the clipboard. I mean, he was like a couple of years older. I think he was 30. So he was
pretty amazing, though, that he was able to. I mean, really, it's hard for me to imagine.
He was able to do the
kid
business
doing
stuff, but he had a mission. I mean, he grew up when he got to the U.S. and he was adopted by a family in the Bronx when he was 10 years old. I mean, he grew up on the streets in the Bronx with Latin music. He loved music. He did all kinds of things, but the music was there, so that his mission was also to educate all these young kids. So that's why he did this tremendous booking, contrast to booking in I don't know about
that's what I loved about
putting the groups together.
You would have Miles Davis with the Stones or something like that, I mean,
well, no Rolling Stones at the Fillmore East, but
okay.
Miles Davis and Laura Nyro shared a booking together, for example. Talk about a contrast.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Fanny, the first female group that even existed. Nobody had an all-female band back then. And she went on to sing backup for Barbra Streisand and to write a song for her.
Wow.
I mean, come on. That's like...
And I made sure to photograph Fanny because, oh my God, a girl group. And in fact,
nobody now knows who
they
Fanny
used
is
my
except
pictures
us.
on their first album.
All right.
No, but this is the thing. This is what's lacking. Listen to radio now, and it is the most boring experience. It's like everything's in monotonal. There's nobody. We were the sign of the times. You want to know what was happening in 1971? Just turn on the fucking radio, and you could listen to the music, and you could walk away knowing what was happening. You could really feel it. And even when you listen to Neil Young, when you listen to those songs, Ohio and all those things that he wrote back then, even now the music he's writing is just lacking the depth that it had back then. And there was something, maybe it was the drugs, I don't know.
Oh, it was youthful hunger. I think everyone was bursting with something to say, and music was driving the culture.
Yeah.
It was a time of idealism when we were all young, and we still believed that art could change the world. And the songs
how naive we were,
reflected that.
Yeah, and so did the movies of the time. You had Godard, and you had Kurosawa, and you had all these masterful filmmakers. There was a whole blossoming everywhere.
Even Easy Rider.
Bill was the first adult that I ever came across that was inspired about their work. He wasn't a businessman. He wasn't a doctor. He wasn't a lawyer. He was a guy who wanted to put on a great show. He was demanding. He had excellence.
You want to hear a great story? Jimi Hendrix, after he did his act, Bill saw Jimmy, and Jimmy said to Bill, "So what'd you think of me tonight?" He says, "You were good." He says, "But you weren't great." And he says, "Why did you think I was great?" He goes,
1970.
"Because you didn't play the blues and the jazz and the more experimental stuff. You played your hits." So what PR what promoter says that shit to somebody? But it's real, and I love the fact that he had the balls to talk to an icon like that. And even then, he was already becoming an icon, and just to say it like it was.
Yeah, I'll listen on that. I remember that night, and Jimmy came back for the Late Show, and that's the Band of Gypsies night. and he killed it on the Late Show.
Yeah, which
And-
was New Year's Eve. He did a
Yeah,
really
New Year's
dull
Eve.
show for the early show, and
he
and
played
totally
it
out.
totally straight.
I got
And he
close. I got close
gotta-
to no.
Jesse,
to
I got to
no
tell you
ready.
the end of this. So he finishes the show and he goes up to the dressing room and he does 2 encores, and then I'm supposed to go up to the dressing room and bring him down one more time because Bill said, if it doesn't work with you, I'll go up and I'll be your reinforcement. So they start heading down. They start walking out, and Jimmy turns to the guys in the band and says, yeah, I know we only been together 2 weeks. You guys know the chords to Purple Haze? And they go down, and Jimmy sees Bill is there. And now, just to show off for Bill, he plays with his teeth. He plays it backwards. He does all the splits and everything. And Bill just could not help but laugh. And, it's a fabulous
I know,
evening.
but it's like, having your adopted child showing off for you. Look what I
Yeah,
can do,
bet.
Daddy.
But all you got to do is listen to that recording and know how serious he was.
That's great.
Right.
He definitely, I don't think we'll ever find anybody like him ever again. I mean, to take risk, that's the biggest problem. We have nobody out there really taking risk in music. It's calculated, it's pre-planned. I also want to understand, when you see a new act for the first time breaking, like Rod Stewart had his first gig with the Faces at the Fillmore.
No, it was Jeff Beck.
Jeff Beck's another one. I mean, you saw these.
Rod Stewart was with Jeff Beck that night.
Wow. So when you see them for the first time, right now they're iconic, but when you see them for the first time, do you know that you're seeing history being made?
I think Amelie will attest for the fact that we were very sophisticated listeners.
Very discerning.
Yeah, very much so. And you saw 4 acts a week, 4 times in a weekend. And in the afternoon, sometimes it was a new band. I remember people all coming over my apartment and listening to this band called Mott the Hoople.
Yeah,
So
all the young dudes.
Before they showed up. And the day that Tommy came out, we listened to that album because the Who were performing that night. There's a lot of very informed and people were passionate about the music.
People don't even remember that Tommy debuted at the Fillmore East. The Who's Tommy. That was the first time they ever played it live.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't that whole summer of 1969, all the way through Woodstock, they were playing large chunks of it. But the first time they played it, the whole thing with the entire libretto from beginning to end were those 6 days in October of 1969 at the Fillmore East, and that was that was a high point for a whole group of us, and it was a high point for me because when this was set up, I went to Josh and I said, listen, you can't have the Who stand up there and play Tommy without us putting together a special production number. We have the libretto. We're nowhere going to. It just can't be 3 groups like the regular Fillmore shows. It has to be something particular, and we should do this. We should do that. We need a bigger light show screen. I can do films, special films for Acid Queen, and all kinds of material that we can put together that we can repeat, break the mirror sequence, etc. And so Josh thought was a good idea. So we got together with Josh and Chris Langhart and John Chester and Bob Goddard and Bob C. And all came up with a plan, put together a proposal. And of course, I, as the young woman who instigated this, I didn't have the clout to go do the pitch for it. So the guys went and pitched Bill Graham for a special budget to put together special production for the Who's presentation of Tom.
Now, anybody who's a Who's
Bill
fan,
went,
Who's
but
fan.
this is another thing that's important to know about Bill Graham. I mean, there, at the time there were all these people calling him a capitalist pig, et cetera, and so forth. No, he cared about about production. He wasn't into, of course, he was into making money. Everybody is on a certain level, but that wasn't the bottom line. He wanted to give the public the best show that he could.
And
Now,
I've heard him actually say that. I've actually heard him
so
say
let me finish, because all those shows were sold out. He didn't have to put up one penny because the shows were sold out. He came up and gave the production crew a $5,000 budget to put together all of the special stuff for Tommy, which included building. That's where we got the new wide curved light show screen, Alan. That was originally built for Tommy. And I got $500 to film special film effects for Acid Queen, et cetera, et cetera. So I mean, he put his money where his mouth was. It didn't matter. And that's one of the things that led me to really admire him when I saw that that it mattered to him, and he wasn't stingy.
Now I want to tell the viewers there's a 12-part video interview with you with Kenjamin Franklin at Radioactive Talent that is going to be accessible to the public, because I know that you, back in 2009, you were actually at the site where the Fillmore used to be, and you gave Ken these extensive interviews that really tells the story. You can go to Fillmore at radiotv.com, or you can also reach Kenjamin Franklin on Facebook. Anything you want to add about that, Emily?
I don't know. I would like Ken to email me the link, not for on his channel, because I don't do Facebook.
Okay, all right, I'll tell him to do that. But anyway, it's for people that really, want to hear a real elongated series of interviews. There's 12 different parts, and I think that you really sum it up. Now, as we can't get Joshua White to comment about his light show, maybe you guys can give the viewers a little taste of what that was like.
Well, I joined the light show my senior year. I just graduated from NYU, but I used to interface with them all the time because I was on the stage crew. And their light shows in San Francisco are spatial. They are like paintings on a wall. And in New York, you had theater people who did lighting changes as the shows would develop on Broadway. You change lights for a different song or act. That concept was built into the DNA of the Fillmore East. So the Joshua light show not only was gorgeous spatially, it moved through time with the music.
Wow.
And so when I became a member of the Joshua Light Show, it was my job to turn the projectors on and off. And since I had been studying film, I did it in a narrative way.
Okay.
And so I would start with one effect. We'd go through a bunch of changes and bring it back at the end with a modification. So even though it was abstract, it was based on a continuity.
So we don't have that anymore.
Well, you don't have the light. There are a few good light shows. There was the guy that worked with the Allman Brothers when they came to the Beacon in March every year up to a certain time, did a pretty good light show. But what was really important about the Fillmore East is it was a proscenium arch theater with numbered seats. So, I mean, that also contributed to creating all of theater production to give people a show. And what I think people don't stop to think about the light show itself is that the light show, they were visual musicians. Now the groups, there were 3 groups a show, and they did an early show and a late show. So each group did 2 sets a night. Early show, late show. The light show, with the few exceptions of the groups when they didn't perform, the light show was doing 6 sets a night. 3 sets the early show, 3 sets of the late show. So they were working their butts off. I mean, it was not, and they were visual musicians. I mean,
we will never see the likes of that again.
No, I would come in at 3 in the afternoon. I come in at 3 in the afternoon and get the platform set up, and people be making the liquids and everything, and we were very connected. to each
Right.
other.
It's really like being on a theater
Yeah.
production rather than a concert.
Well, it was a theater. It was a theater. That's
Right,
what was
yeah.
fantastic about it. And also, when we were lucky enough, the groups had an album out. Not every group did, but most of them did. So people did their research, and they can. I mean, Alan, you know what the songs are going to be, most of them. So you pull together slides, or you make slides, you make material. That's gonna work with the music. I mean, I went out one weekend and chased steam engine trains all over from Hoboken all the way up to Binghamton, New York, and back with a steam engine train freak friend of mine who got the Army engineering maps so we could figure out everywhere we could get on a bridge or here when the train and get there before the train came by, and I could shoot them with a 25 to 250 Angenu lens on a, and then we used all that footage. I mean, with Casey Jones, with the Grateful Dead.
Started with Casey Jones, and then became the Statesboro Blues by the Allman Brothers. Whenever they start that count that come in, that engine would come around the curve, because the Allmans had the power of.
They're there again. You guys are back there. I can.
Came up and up, and then it went around the curve and whooshed by. I mean,
And do you know? I don't know if you guys are aware of this. Did you know that Bill, had a wire running from the console into a private apartment above the club? And
it wasn't a private apartment above. It was my loft.
Your loft.
I shared the loft on the second
floor. So you're the
floor.
culprit.
John Chester, who was the sound engineer and who was my first husband. And there was a secret recording studio up there. I have photographs of it. There were two 4-track stereo Revox machines.
He recorded everything. He knew he was making it.
And without Amelie and that apartment, we would not have this recording.
Yeah.
That's fixed pitch number 4. Mm-hmm. And it is the late show Saturday night of the Allman Brothers Dead. And it's probably it's my favorite Grateful Dead show at the Fillmore. And look, the water cooler got dosed backstage that night. But nonetheless.
With what?
With LSD. Ozzy LSD.
Orange Sunshine,
And I will swear to that day that some point during Dark Star, the theater actually rose 6 feet above Second Ave.
Yeah, and Bill, the Dead successfully finally dosed Bill Graham, and I have a photograph of him playing the cowbell.
He doesn't play it as well as Corky.
Oh my God! So he did a little window pane, huh?
But Corky's better on the cowbell than Bill.
Appreciate that.
That's what we need. We need more cowbell.
And then Amelie's famous photograph Amelie did a photograph of the Fleetwood Mac, the Allmans, and the Dead all on stage together jamming. And that was the same weekend. And Mick Fleetwood had been dosed. And he's standing playing the cowbell, and then he couldn't stand, so he lies down in the next 20 seconds and lays down on the floor and plays the cowbell.
But in the photograph, he's got his arms up.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Alan Arkush, Amelie Rothschild, the legendary Corky Lang. Thank you for appearing on The Alarmist and to reminisce about the great Fillmore East. June 27th, 1971 was the day it closed the stores, and this show will air on that same day so that we can remember what a great venue that was, what a great man Bill Graham was, and what great contributions you three and others gave us. We will never be able to repay you for that gift. I wish younger generations can discover how great the Fillmore was. I mean, we will never find one venue that hosted such great talent like this. We need to celebrate it, and we need to never forget. Thank you, guys.